What a night it was on Tuesday night as the Atlanta Braves clinched the World Series with a big 7-0 victory over the Houston Astros. Still just kind of recovering from the aftermath there, staying up late, watching all the post-game interviews, just living in that moment from the exciting World Series win. So what I want to do on today's episode of Locked On Braves, I want to recap the biggest moments from the World Series. When you go back and you think about this World Series run for the Braves, what are the moments in your mind that stick out to you to most? So we're going to be covering all of those big key moments from this World Series on today's podcast of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
Hey, this is Stacey Gotsoulias,
DC Lundberg,
Ryan Finkelstein,
Taylor Blake Ward,
host of Locked On Yankees,
Locked On Mariners,
Locked On Mets,
Locked On Angels,
and you're listening to Locked On Braves.
Locked On Braves,
Locked On Braves,
part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Braves, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your favorite teams every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can check out my bio on Twitter at ShortstopBall to see everywhere I am covering the game of baseball, including your Atlanta Braves over at TomahawkTake.com. Also, make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. And make sure that you are subscribed to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Made a lot of good progress there during the World Series, starting up that channel. So please go subscribe to us over there as well. And thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. We post episodes 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and we are free and available on all platforms. And we will be here for you throughout the entire offseason. I know the Braves just won the World Series, and that's exciting, but now the season is over, and now after this week, we're going to start turning the page towards the offseason. So make sure you stick with us through the offseason as well. Have plenty of breakdowns there, everything going on when they get that Freddie Freeman extension done, which hopefully will be happening soon. So make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Braves podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube as well. But like I said, we're going to be talking about the biggest moments from the World Series on today's podcast. Again, those moments when you think back to this World Series, what comes to your mind? We're going to be covering all of that. I wrote a companion piece to this podcast over on TomahawkTake.com highlighting my 6 biggest moments from the World Series. You go over and read that as well. We're going to talk about a lot of those big moments here on the podcast, what I think are some of the biggest moments, the key moments from this World Series. So make sure to hit us up on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves and at ShortstopBall. Let me know what your favorite moments were from this World Series for the Atlanta Braves. But let's start off. And one thing to keep in mind when you're going back and thinking of the biggest moments, obviously as the series goes on, the moments become bigger. So we're going to start back at the beginning and really kind of go all the way through. In game one, when I think of game one of this World Series, I'm going to think of Charlie Morton, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but let's not forget Jorge Solaire began his World Series MVP run by doing something that had never been done before. In the 117 years of the World Series, he led off the World Series with a bang, with a home run to really get it started, kind of prophesying what was going to be coming for Jorge Solaire in this World Series, giving you just a taste, a glimpse of what he was going to do in this World Series, completely taking it over with the home run ball. He starts out the World Series, first batter of the World Series with a home run, had never been done before. So just a really great way, obviously, to get the World Series started, especially when you're the road team. I think that really set the tone for the Braves in this. The Astros were the heavy favorite. The Braves were on the road. And here comes Solaire, first batter of the game, first batter of this World Series, and he gives the Braves a huge lift with that home run. I think that was such a big home run, but, also just something that never been done before. Certainly something you're going to think back on when you think of this World Series, with Solaire just starting it out with a bomb and then just really not stopping all the way through. I mean, we're going to talk about some other big moments he has, but even in games where he didn't get a hit, and he even got taken out of the lineup in Atlanta in this series as well, when they didn't have the DH, and he still came up with a big moment. I mean, it seemed like when he wasn't getting a hit in this series, he was just missing. He was that close. So again, we're going to talk about it some more with Solaire, but just a huge series for him. And we should have known it from the very beginning because he's the one that got the party started. But also, when you think about game one of the World Series, I think most people are going to think about Charlie Morton. And, not just the fact that the Braves lost their game one starter 3 innings into game one of the World Series and just how devastating that was, but the fact that he took that rocket off the leg from Yuli Gurriel and he went on to pitch to 3 more batters and got them out on a broken leg, including a strikeout of Jose Altuve on the last pitch that he threw before just grimacing there on the mound, realizing, hey, my leg is broken. It's a bittersweet moment, or it's not really even sweet, but I mean, just to think about the heroics that Charlie Morton went through to, if you didn't already know what type of competitor he is, to want to continue to go back out there after taking that ball off the leg, knowing the amount of pain he was in, did he know at that time that his leg was broken? No. And I really don't think they would have let him go back out there if that were the case. But, still he had to be in a considerable amount of pain. And for him to be able to go out there and do what he did, you see how badly he wanted to fight for his team. Everybody who talked to him after the game said that all Charlie said was, I'm sorry. When they're going to console him and tell him, how they're sorry that this happened to him, Charlie's telling them he's sorry that it happened, that he wasn't able to complete the game, that he's not able to be out there to fight for his guys. That really just tells you what this entire team was about, not just Charlie Morton, but you heard it from, the players throughout the postseason and especially after the World Series, just how much these guys loved each other, cared for each other, wanted to play for each other. And I think that's what made them such a special group. It's why they were so good. It's why they were so special. And I think why a lot of Braves fans will cherish this group of individuals that really just came together, played for each other, went through a lot. I haven't talked about it a ton on the podcast, but I think the Ozuna situation early in the season really was a drag on the clubhouse. Ozuna was, that energetic type of guy in there that a lot of people rallied around. And, when that happened to him, I think it really brought down that clubhouse a good bit. And, I was saying during that time, the Braves need to go trade for somebody. They need to change this clubhouse atmosphere to turn things around. And, they ultimately did that. But it's still, you got to have guys like Charlie Morton that were in there from beginning to end, just kind of preaching that fight for each other mentality to continue grinding. And, no better example of somebody who's continuing to grind than Charlie Morton, who takes a 100-mile-per-hour comebacker off the leg, finishes the play. They get the out. It bounces over to Freddie, who gets the out, but, goes on to pitch to 3 more batters, gets them out, gets a strikeout. I mean, when I think back to game one of this World Series, I'll undoubtedly think about just another obstacle the Braves had to overcome and losing their game one starter, but just also how much I love Charlie Morton and how determined he is to fight for his team, to win for his team, pitching on a broken leg. Just truly amazing stuff of legends that I think we'll talk about for a long time to come. We'll take our first break here, and then we'll come back and look at some other key moments from the World Series for the Atlanta Braves. BetOnline is back and better than ever. They have a new web interface for the start of basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use our promo code LOCKEDON. From baseball, basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so moving along in the series, obviously game 2 was one to forget for the Braves. Max Fried, I've talked about it a lot, that second inning where things really just got away. I will say one key from that game is that he settled down and he retired, 10 batters in a row. And you look at the analytics of that outing, and Fried was actually really good. I've talked about the series of unfortunate events that he had in that second inning. That's why I was so glad he was able to come back for game 6 and prove himself, because he was not as bad as the runs indicate in that game 2 outing. Just had things, unfortunately not go his way, but he was able to settle down and get through 5 innings of that game, save the bullpen, which was really big. But overall, that game was a bit of a stinker for the Braves. They really just got beat pretty handedly in that one. So not a lot of huge takeaways from that game or key moments, other than, Max Fried. It set up the redemption for him in game 6. Game 3, you go back to Atlanta. And when you think of game 3, I think you're going to think of a cold, rainy, misty night. That's what I think of, the shots that Fox was showing, coming into Truist Park. You can barely see with all the Fox, with all the mist that's going on, the fog in the area, really just kind of an eerie scene. And really both pitchers kind of struggling with command, offensive struggling on a cold night. But it was Ian Anderson, 5 shutout, no hit innings. And, the decision from Brian Snitker to take him out, which was highly debated during the game. I don't think it is so much now. And it was the right move. I still think it was the correct decision for Brian Snitker, because it was a 1-run game. If it's a 6-0 game like it was in game 6 when he took Max Fried out, that I would maybe be a little bit more upset about. But this was a 1-0 game. And, you had the bullpen, you had the night shift ready to go. And it just seemed like the perfect night for the night shift on an eerie, misty, cold, rainy type of night. So I think it was definitely the right move to go to those guys, let them do what they did all postseason, and just finish that thing off in a close game. They end up throwing a 2-hit shutout against the Houston Astros. And, really, when I look back at the series as a whole, and I talked about this on the post-game episode for game 6, the pitching staff shut down the best offense in all of baseball. And for 2 whole games, they shut them out without scoring a single run. That is a story of the postseason. Everybody's going to talk about the home runs that they hit, but it was the pitching that carried them. That was truly amazing in this postseason. To hold that Astros team to 2 runs or fewer in 4 games is truly remarkable. And, one of those games was a bullpen game started by Tucker Davidson, which, no disrespect to Tucker Davidson. I love him. I think he's going to be a very solid middle to back of the order rotation piece for a while, but that just wasn't a great spot for him. And then obviously the Braves kind of punted that game, bringing in Drew Smyly late, who gave up a couple of runs. So, for the most part, and the other game where they scored runs, game 2, which we just talked about, that second inning just really unraveled for Max Fried. Probably only should have given up maybe 1 run in that inning. The defense kind of faltered with that play where they threw the ball everywhere. So, you think about it, the 2 games the Astros won, one of them was just a game where it had some unfortunate events where balls were just finding holes, some weak balls were getting to the infield, some defensive mistakes. And the other one was against a rookie in Tucker Davidson and a bunch of other pitchers that the Braves aren't really going to want to use or trust in a big game. So, outside of those 2 games, this Braves pitching staff was just completely dominant in this postseason. But game 3 in particular is just where it was, on full display. Ian, almost had the no-hitter. You had the no-hitter go into the 8th inning, and then they got that bloop hit to end it. A ball Rosario probably should have caught, but either way, just still an amazing pitching performance, back in Atlanta, where they haven't hosted a World Series game since 1999. They haven't won a World Series game since 1995. So, just great all around, kind of atmosphere at the ballpark. Truist was crazy the entire postseason, but especially in that World Series. So, you mix all that together. I think that's what I'll think of when I think of game 3 of this World Series, is being back home in Atlanta, having that crowd, having the near no-hitter. And, a couple of things offensively, or the one thing offensively in that game that sticks out to me, and, they talked about it on the Fox broadcast during the game, and it really did end up becoming an important play, is in the bottom of the 2nd, Travis d'Arnaud gets a 2-out double. Seems harmless. And then they intentionally walk Dansby Swanson to get to the pitcher to get out of the inning. And what does that do? That sets up Eddie Rosario to lead off the third inning. He gets on a walk, and then Freddie gets the hit, and then Riley brings him in to give them that run, which felt so big. Again, a cold night. You knew offenses were going to be struggling, and they got that early run. So that Travis d'Arnaud seemingly innocent double in the bottom of the second proved to be really big in that game. Of course, he had the home run late too to give that nice insurance run as well. So a big game from Travis d'Arnaud. But that double in the second, I'm telling you, that was a big moment in that game when you knew offense runs were going to be hard to come by, and the Astros decided to pitch around Swanson, or not pitch to him at all, just put him on and face the pitcher. That set them up to score that run in the third inning in what was a 2-0 win for the Braves. And then going to game 4. Actually, let's take a break. I want to take a break before we get into game 4, because for me, this is the biggest moment, the biggest game of this series. So we'll take one more break, and then we'll come back and dive into the biggest moments from game 4 in the rest of the World Series. So in game 4, you had the RBI, or no, let's start back even further than that. So earlier in this game, Zach Greinke gets a hit, and then I guess it was so they had Maldonado batting ninth inning. So Greinke gets a hit, Maldonado gets on, Altuve's up. I believe it's 1 out. Apologize, I should have checked this before coming on air here, but I think there was 1 out, and Altuve smokes a ball down the third baseline. Riley, who's guarding the line, is able to make a step, dive, and catch the ball in the air, saves an RBI double for Altuve, and potentially sets the Astros up for a big inning. But Riley catches it, keeps them off the board there. I think that was a humongous play in this series that probably doesn't get a lot of attention. And we haven't talked about a lot of the big defensive plays in this series, but that is one right there that is huge. Again, it ended up being a 2-0 game for the Astros. They had opportunities in that game to kind of blow things open. That was another one there. Just a great play by Riley that saved a run and potentially more in that game and kept them in that game. And then Riley came up with the RBI hit later in that game. I believe it was in the 6th inning to make it 2-1. And, this is where I give a lot of props to manager Brian Snitker. Again, I thought he had an amazing postseason managerial-wise, pulled all the right strings, made all the right decisions. You can fault him for that game 5, not going for it there, using your best relievers. But when you come back and win in game 6, because you have your guys fully rested, then you kind of can forgive that. But in game 4, down 2-1, he goes to Matzik in the 7th to keep the game right where it was. We know for a fact because he had Matzik and Smiley getting up in the bullpen until Riley drove in that run to make it 2-1, and he decided to bring in Matzik. Can you imagine if Riley doesn't get that run, or if Snitker says, well, they're still down, they only got 1 run, they didn't tie it up, and he goes with Smiley, and Smiley does what Smiley does and gives up a run or 2 there? That is a completely different ball game. And, that is just absolutely huge right there in that series for the Braves. So, that is monstrous to be able to make that decision and to bring in Matzik to keep the game close, having confidence in your offense that they're going to come back. A big hit by Riley there too, who, may not have put up the biggest numbers in the World Series, but he had some key plays, some key hits for the Braves in this World Series. So again, that was a huge moment for me. Not only the hit to make it 2-1, but the decision by Snitker to go to Matzik, trusting in his offense to come back, and they ultimately did. And that takes me to the biggest moment of this World Series. In that game 4, you get the back-to-back home runs from Dansby and from Solaire. Dansby's to tie it up, Solaire's to take the lead. To me, that was this series. If that doesn't happen and Snitker burns the big guys in the bullpen and they don't come back, they lose that game, then you have another bullpen game coming up with Tucker Davidson starting, and we saw how that went. I mean, the Braves are going back to Houston down 3-2, and now I still have confidence in them with Fried and Anderson on the bump, but that is a completely different series at that point if those things don't play out just like that. And that Dansby Swanson at bat, I'm telling you, I was catching up with the game. So I was kind of fast forwarding through it. I saw Dansby take that swing on that first pitch slider, and I said, he's got no chance. And I started to fast forward through it, and I saw the crowd go wild, and I had to go back and watch it. Because I mean, by all rights, he should have had no chance in that at bat. Why they decided to go back with a fastball, I do not know. But Dansby Swanson, what a swing there, opposite field blast to tie the game up. Gets him later in game 6 as well. Quit throwing Dansby that fastball. But so thankful that he did. And Dansby was on it, crushed it, tied it up. What a huge moment for the hometown kid. I love Dansby. I've talked about it for a while now. One of my favorite players, Mark DeRosa, talking about it after the World Series. He's just a winner. I mean, he is. And I know he's a controversial topic amongst Braves fans, but he gets it done. He's a winner. You know, he makes winning plays. And that was just a huge moment for him in this World Series, putting his stamp on this World Series offensively. Just a really big moment for him. And then Solaire, who doesn't start game 4. They start Jock Peterson in that game, and Solaire comes in off the bench with a pinch hit homer, a ball that he crushed. I thought it was going to be a no-doubter, but he had a lot of top spin on it. And, when I think about that home run, I think about this World Series, I picture that ball just getting out over the outstretched arm of Yordan Alvarez, big, tall left fielder, banging into the wall there. And that ball just getting over his glove and over the fence for the go-ahead home run. And then that great image of Dansby in the dugout and just the jubilation that he has. That was great. One of the best moments of this World Series. But game 4, that was the biggest moment for me. That's when this entire thing changed. That's when the series changed, the momentum changed. It seemed like the Braves were dead for half of that game until they got something in the 6th. Again, chipped away with that one run in the great plays earlier that I mentioned to keep the Astros off the board early in that game to set them up for a chance later. Again, game 4 is the biggest game in this series for me, and it's what won the Braves this World Series. Now, when you think back on a World Series and you think about winning a World Series, a lot of the times you're going to think about the game that won it, the game that clinched it, that sealed the deal. And obviously there are some very key moments from game 6, even though it was ultimately a blowout game. But when you think of this World Series, you think about the Braves closing it out. When we think about the 1995 World Series, you think about game 6 there. You think about what Glavine did in those 8 shutout innings. You think about the home run from David Justice. And now you have your game 6 heroes in the 2021 World Series. Because when you think about the closeout game, you're going to think about Max Fried's performance and his dominant outing over 6 innings. You're going to think about the majestic blast from Jorge Solaire over the train tracks that still has not landed. I don't care what they say. That ball went at least 600 feet. It was absolutely destroyed. And I think ultimately when you think of this World Series run for the Braves, you're probably going to think of Solaire and think of that home run that he hit in game 6. So that was just such a beautiful home run, a beautiful at bat. And so I think that's probably the one image. If I had to give one image from this World Series, that's probably it. I mean, he was your World Series MVP because he had 3 go-ahead home runs, just absolutely incredible. So that's probably what most fans will think about. But I also think about that first inning from Max Fried where, he gives up an infield single to Altuve. He gives up a dribbler to Brantley, that was scored an error. Brantley steps on his foot. He still didn't touch the bag, should have been out. But regardless, Fried has 2 on, no outs. The ball hasn't left the infield. Nothing hit over 82 miles per hour. And he's sitting there thinking, not again. I'm not going to let what happened in the second inning of last game happen. Not this time. And you see a fired up Max Fried coming out, just throwing bullets. That at bat to Gurriel is one that's going to stick out in my mind for a while. He just goes in there, throws 3 straight fastballs to the AL batting champion, all in the same location, 97, 97, 98, walks off the mound, pumped up, showing more emotion than I've ever seen from Max Fried. That's going to be one of my favorite images from this World Series because when that happened, the game was over. I mean, Max Fried he made his statement. It's not going to happen again. And this is my game. I'm closing it out. That was your chance. You're not going to get another one. So for me, that is one of the biggest moments that I'll remember from this World Series. And then obviously the big blast from Solaire over the train tracks, which is, again, I could watch the replay of that hit all day long. So those are the biggest moments for me from this World Series. When I think back to this World Series, those are the moments that are going to come to mind for me. But like I said at the beginning, let me know your favorite moments. Hit us up on Twitter at @LockedOn_Braves. Hit me up at Shortstop Ball. Let me know what your favorite moments were from this World Series. Would love to hear from you there. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Again, be sure to follow us on Twitter at @LockedOn_Braves. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And make sure that you subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.